back, everybody, and we're going to do a tomato review on this tomato right here, and it's called the Lemon Ice Dwarf, or Dwarf Lemon Ice Tomato. And it's basically a dwarf variety tomato. They generally don't get too much bigger than maybe 3 feet at best in height, and that's about it. Now, I happened to plant this tomato not knowing it was a dwarf because I got the seeds, it just said lemon ice, so I didn't know it was a dwarf variety of tomato, so I planted among a lot of my other tomato varieties, and they just got crowded out completely. So next year I'll have to grow this one by itself in a dwarf type of garden where all the dwarfs can grow, because if you grow that next to a regular variety, it's just going to get dwarfed out. It's going to get smothered out, and you're not going to be able to get the plant to grow effectively like I did. So I did get some tomatoes off it, but just not very many because it got shuttered out. So let's put it on the scale. Now, I'd gotten about 3 or 4 tomatoes off it already, and fortunately I ate those. But I got about 3 or 4 of those off of there, and they were all about the same sizes and almost the same look at that. So let me give you a better look at it. It's like a mini type of maybe beefsteak, but the weird thing about this tomato variety is it's narrow like that, and yet it's wide on the bottom. So it's very wide this way, but very narrow that way. And I've gotten about, like I said, about 3 or 4 of these off of there already, and they were all pretty much the same way. So I'm assuming that's the way they're generally going to look. They're going to be a narrow type and long. Though they may not be, I'd have to grow it again. It could just be that one plant was doing that. I don't know. I just found them to be strange because they were all kind of the same way. Kind of. Not 100% like this one. But so let's put this on the scale and see what it weighs. I'm going to back you out a little bit. All right, turn it on the scale. Let it zero out. So they're roughly going to be around 2 ounces. This was 1.8 ounces. They're going to be around 2 ounces on average for this variety. At least the variety that I'm growing. About 2 ounces. We'll see next year if they get a little heavier. I'm sure they could get a little bit bigger, maybe 2 to even 3 ounces. But let's cut this in half and do a bricks on it. Wow, that's interesting looking. Here, let's show you the inside first. Nice and meaty. There's a lot of meat in here, not much in seeds. The other tomatoes were like that too, kind of. There wasn't very many seeds in these tomatoes. Very few. I did try to save some of the seeds, but there's just not many inside. So let's break out the bricks and do a bricks test. Squeeze test is taking a little bit of squeezing to get the juice on it, but see what it says. It says 5 on the bricks, 5 on the money on the bricks. So it's going to be about average as far as you know, the whole overall experience of it. I don't think it's going to be too sweet, but let's give this a taste test and see what it tastes like. Okay, let's start off with the sweetness. The sweetness was definitely below average. Probably going to go about 20, maybe 21 on the sweetness. Wasn't much sweetness there, but it wasn't bad. So it was a little low on the sweetness. Go over to the tangy. Now the tangy was a little higher than that. Tangy part I'm going to put somewhere above average. I'm going to say that the tanginess was probably around 28, 29 on the tangy. So the numbers are a little higher on that. But it wasn't bad. Actually, that tanginess was well appreciated, being that the sweetness was low. Because I personally hate low flavored tomatoes. Tomatoes that are low on tangy and sweetness. You can't really build that tomato flavor. Now, let's talk about the tomato flavor. Again, when we're talking about tomato flavor, we're talking about how prominent was that flavor in the whole profile. Tomato flavor was pretty prominent. It was a little above average. So from a scale of 0 to 10, we're probably going to say that the tomato flavor was somewhere around a 6, maybe 6.5 on the tomato flavor. That's how strong that flavor was in the whole tomato profile. And it was a good flavor too, by the way. It was very nice, very pleasant, very welcoming type of flavor, even though it was low in the sweetness. Moisture was about average. We're going to go 5 on the moisture. Wasn't nothing spectacular, but it was about average. Now, there was tardiness in there. I'm going to go 2 on the tardiness, because the tardiness, it hit that back part of my jaw, and I felt it relatively pretty quick. So there was a tardiness or sourness type of lemony type of effect. When you eat a lemon, you get that little stinging feeling in the back of your jaw. If you don't get that feeling, then I don't know what to tell you. But when I eat lemons or I eat something, it really, there's like a gland or something right in the back of your jawbone, right over there. It really squeezes that gland or something, and I can feel that very sensitively. So this definitely had some of that going on, but it dissipated relatively pretty quick. But it worked pretty nicely with the tangy flavor. Because it was low on sweetness, the tarty and the tangy really consummated the whole flavor of what we're doing now. So that tardiness was actually needed in order to really bring that flavor together. Undertones, there was some kind of an undertone. There was just some kind of a weird type of smoky undertone. I don't know any other way to put it. It wasn't an earthy tone. It was more like a smoky tone, like when you smoke fish in a grill. It didn't taste like fish, but had a smoky type of an effect to it. Was pretty nice. It was just different. I didn't really expect that, but it was nice, but not very strong. So we're going to go about 1.5. I think is what we're going to go with on the undertones. I may have said 2, but no, say 1.5 because it wasn't that strong. But there was definitely something there, and it wasn't very short. It was very short-lived. I still kind of have it around on my tongue, actually, a little bit. On my upper part of my tongue, I can still kind of taste it a little. So, yeah, there was definitely something going on there, but it wasn't bad. It was actually pretty pleasant and welcoming in this particular tomato profile, being the sweetness was on the low side. Texture was really good. It was a pretty nice texture. It held together pretty good. But I'm going to say it was maybe just a little below average. We started getting into the slightly dry, chalky effect, maybe possibly a little bit grainy. Was starting to get in that little area, though it was good texture because you can chop this tomato up, put it in a salad, it'll hold together. But it was starting to get into that grainy effect, and I'm not a big fan of that at all. So I'm going to put this at about a 4 on the texture. Now, because of skins, I'm not rating the texture based on skins anymore because I got to separate them. Skins are going to get their own rating from a 0 to 5. And basically, the skins on this was 5 being, I'm going to say 5 being very, very tough on the skin. This was pretty tough. I'm going to put this at about a 4, guys. The skins were very tough. I had to spit the skins out. Didn't break up with the tomato very well, so I wasn't pleased with the skin part. Though I don't have a scale on here, yeah, I'm going to rate the skins a little separately because I don't want to infuse that into the texture anymore. It's starting to create confusion. So yeah, the skins were definitely a little bit on a tough side, and that's going to lower the whole rating because of that. And production-wise, it wasn't very productive this year, but again, that's my fault because I grew it among many other tomatoes. I didn't know it was a dwarf variety, and that was my fault because of that. But I'm going to, for now, just put the tomato as an average, which would be a 5 on the scale, because I don't know its true production, and I would imagine it's about average. So how would I rate this tomato from 1 to 10, 1 being the highest? Right now, I'm probably going to rate this at about a 4, only because a lot of things got in the way of me actually bringing those numbers up a little bit. And what's even giving you a 4 is the undertones. That weird kind of smoky undertone was a very interesting type of flavor. Part of the flavor profile was very interesting. But what's killing that number right now is the low sweetness. That's killing it. The slightly grainy effect on and chalk, a little bit chalky effect on a tomato. Again, some of these tomatoes have been sitting on my table now for about a week or so. That might be contributing to it. But normally, even with tomatoes that I leave out here for long periods of time, they don't always get chalky. Sometimes that contributes to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the reason why they're chalky or grainy. And this particular one started going in that direction, so then that part helped lower that number a little bit. And the tough skins really dropped that number down because nobody wants to eat a tomato with skins that you got to keep spitting the skins out like you're eating grapes. You ever eat a grape? You get the inside pops out, and then there's this bitter, tangy, tardy skin left in your mouth that you're trying to chew up from the grape. You spit them out. Nobody chews those, so you spit them out. And so this is kind of like that. It's a skin tough like that, and I wasn't happy with that at all. And so what we'll do is next year we'll grow this out again, and we'll see if we could bring these numbers up a little bit by giving it a little more attention. When I say give it a little more attention, I got to grow it by itself. I got to baby it like I'm babysitting, and I'm not the kind of a guy who likes to babysit my plants like I'm babysitting. I want to be able to put them out there, let them grow, give them good soil, water them, and I don't want to have to baby them other than that. And if I got to sit there and give you over attention, that means it starts to become a maintenance issue with me. And that's where we start to have a problem, because I grow 150, 200 varieties every year, and I can't put that kind of attention to every variety. And maybe a couple I can, but I have to be all special about it, and that just starts to really interfere. And that's I'm not too happy. But next year we'll give it the baby effect. We'll put it in its own self-watering container, and I'll grow it up at my driveway. We're taking a couple trees down so we get some more sunlight. We're going to take those down so it's going to get full sun basically. And hopefully that contributes better to the plant's overall growing behavior, and we can get a higher production out of it. And we can also bring these numbers up. I'm going to lime the soil really good too. And then that way we can really bring up some of that sweetness. That might be why it's a little low. So don't make this a die-hard, tomato review, and this is the only way, this is junk tomato. Don't do that, because when I review it next year, like I did with the mortgage lifter, I've reviewed it 3 times. I've been growing that tomato on and off for the last 10 years, and I just don't have a high standard for the tomato no matter how much I try. And no matter how many changes I've made to soils and conditions, I always seem to get very similar or close to the same effect. And so I need to trial and error it for a couple of years. So we're going to do that with this tomato, unless I can really pick it up the next year. It could have just been a blooper on my part, bad soil, bad water, bad rain, bad sun. I don't know. You pick your poison. But we're going to do what we can. We're going to try to pick that flavor up. And if it doesn't pick up, well, then that's just the genetics of the tomato, guys. That's it. It's no really all my error and fault on me. All right, so I take the blame in the beginning, but after that, if it's still doing it even after I change up the soil and do different things, and it still does that, well, then that's just a tomato. That's it for this review on this tomato. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave whatever information I find about it in the description below and on the website. I will also leave a link in the description below that will bring you to the website if you decide you want to buy seeds. Make sure if you're reading the information, you always check the information on the website first, because I don't always update the video descriptions. So if you're reading about it from the video, just check the website just to make sure that's, I didn't make any changes to it. All right. So that's it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.